welcome to another Afro-Asiatic Real Talk forum.
Yeah.
This is, I believe, is edition number 5.
It is.
What are we at? April 17th, I believe.
Yep.
What's up, SKC? My man Sterlyn Takuan, how you feel?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. The weather is warmer. Everything's getting, less cold. And I'm just not a man of cold. So I'm just happy that everything's getting a little warmer. And it's right before the bug season. You know, Japan is known for the damn influx of bugs everywhere.
Insects. Yeah, I had some ants. I forgot I got to wipe my desk down. I saw some ants earlier. They're making their way out of the burrows. Coming into my first floor. I got to get up off this first floor. I'm going to be moving sooner than later.
Ants, huh?
Yeah, the ants come, man. I mean, there's really nothing you can do. Where I live, it used to be a mountainside, probably less than 10 years ago. And so it's a very, very upscale place, but this is one of the downsides, especially if you're on the first floor.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, what we're getting into today is we're getting into, I say the topic or what?
Today's topic
is something that we always kind of do anyway, unintentionally, but pushing people's buttons, and especially pushing people's buttons in Japan. What are their buttons? What is the dame switch? You know what I'm saying? That you can't do that. You can't say that.
The taboo switch.
Yeah.
Okay, so to give people something to compare it to. So for example, if we're talking about black people, the average black person, let's talk about males and females.
Okay.
What do you think is what pushes a black woman's buttons?
I want to say that's easy, but sometimes it depends. In general, talking about a woman's physical appearance, and not in a dissing way, like in a truthful way. I went on Tinder, met a girl. She was bigger than she looked like in her picture. That was in Japan. But I'm sure that if you in the States, you meet a sister and you're like, damn, you a lot bigger than I thought you were going to be. Something like that. Like, man, I could see that getting on a woman's nerves.
Hey, you gained some weight.
Yeah, you gained some.
Yeah, it looked like you gained a few pounds.
Yeah.
It might not go over too well.
Not go too well. I think a lot of women would get mad if I say this. I haven't dated a black woman in a while, but I still would love to date a black woman, but I personally couldn't get with a black woman with a weave. Okay. And who wears one regularly. Okay. Like every once in a while is one thing, but like that's your standard look. I can see a lot of, especially older women taking offense to that. Okay.
They don't like any mention of a weave. You mean like saying something negative about it, or just pointing it out?
Just pointing like saying like it's personally not my. I see that as a turnoff.
Okay, it's being critical about the whole concept of a weave. Okay, we're not saying whether it's right or wrong. We're just trying to point out things that push certain people's buttons, and because we're talking to a black audience, we want to contrast it because we're going to go in on Japan. Okay. So even for a guy, any guy, I think as you were talking about, this is the cowardly word.
Calling a guy out as a coward. Yeah.
Or just insinuating that you're afraid. You're not manly enough in one way or another. It pushes people's buttons. And I really think this word, like coon, allusion to a coon, sellout, Uncle Tom, those words by themselves push people's buttons. People get really defensive, especially the ones who are coons, sellouts, and Uncle Toms.
Especially them, because let me ask you, if somebody called you a coon or a sellout, Uncle Tom, would you be offended?
If you have to supply more background. For example, when I talk about the ladies that I met in Atlanta, that's what she said. She called me a sellout, and I let her finish. I didn't get what you saying, but because I was more curious. Like really? Because I guess because I know I'm not a sellout. I mean, there's Yeah.
So again, the topic is pushing people's buttons. A button means a quick reaction. You say something and then you react quickly to it. Because cat could call me a coon or a sellout, and I'll be like, well, you have to explain that.
Yeah, I'm curious. I want to know, because to be honest with you, if you say that, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say, whoa, there's something I did, something I wrote came off as less than a man's man. Let's just put it that way. I want to know what it is so that I can fix it. I can adjust it. I can explain, and if it is something I'm like, whoa, that does kind of look kind of strange, and I need to adjust that, because I'm definitely not trying to come off with any kind of coon energy. But yeah, I think if someone said it to me, I think you're talking about your gut reaction. My initial reaction would be one of curiosity, not one of fighting back or being insulted. Right.
Being insulted. Again, whatever you do, you know what I'm saying? Who cares what I think? Basically, that's I think for men and women, your button is pushed when somebody you don't even care about says something, you get offended. That's a button pusher.
Yep. Brother Jeff Brown on the Zoe What show. Shout out to the Zoe Williams and Jeff Brown. Yep. He had a quote I remember. He said, "What other people think about you is none of your business." Say it again. What other people think about you is none of your business. And he's speaking kind of facetiously there, but the point is well taken. Like, you should be so caught up in what you know about yourself rather than getting caught up with somebody else thinks, whether it's positive or negative. I can be like, Sterlyn is the greatest. He's this, that. I could really be lauding you, but if you get caught up in that ain't good either. Hey, I really am that. Next thing you know, you vain Wayne. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be sure, especially as a man. You need to be sure about yourself, and that all goes into the ability to stand on your square.
Standing on your square.
Okay, and that's what we're talking about. Indirectly even. But let's bring it to Japan now. Let's bring it to Japan. We've defined what pushing buttons. But sometimes it's important. I hate to say it. Sometimes it's important to push people's buttons or to know how to push people's buttons if someone is coming against you. For example, you're being attacked. You're under attack. You have to know how to. Hey, you need to push back. You got to have some sort of pushback. You need to get back. Get up out my face. Back up off me.
Right.
Yep.
If you know how to wield it the right way, it could be a teaching moment. If it's in the right environment or whatever it is. Let's just make it real simple. Like for kids, I teach kids all the time, and sometimes they don't feel like doing the work. But children don't like thinking they can't do something. So, reverse psychology, when a kid doesn't feel like doing some of the work, you're like, yeah, you can't do it, man. I know it's too hard. They're like, yes, I can. You're like, oh, no, you can't. I ain't gonna lie. Compared to everybody else, you kind of slow. It's all good. And then they start doing it much faster. So I use it as a teacher, but you can use it as positive reinforcement.
Is that something that is exclusive to Japan, or do you think that would work with a Canadian child or a Nigerian child?
When it comes to children, I think it's all across the board.
Okay. All right. I agree.
Once you grow, the culture indoctrinates you or institutionalizes you or whatever it does. But that's why most places, when they're children, you got to let them kind of be kids. There's only so much you can force on them.
Okay. But again, let's bring it to Japan. I agree with what you said, but I think that has something special in Japan, because anytime, and this is really what I want to get to, if you're talking about pushing a child's buttons or any Japanese person, but it works very easily with children if you have them in a classroom setting. We talk about this word dantai teki. And the dantai is the group. Teki just means what the
appeal, the feel, the what is it?
System or the
ness, the groupness.
Yeah, ness, the ness and ness, groupness.
Like the groupness, dantai teki. Yeah.
Okay. Japanese thrive on this. This is their strength and this is their weakness. And this is part of the Yamato code that I talk about in the article, afroasiatic.jp.
Right on.
And if you understand this, you can use this to your advantage. Now, I'm warning you, if you're not equipped you can get yourself in trouble with this, because you're really going into the what do you mean, the basis, the foundation of being Japanese. So when I was a high school teacher, or junior high school teacher especially, if some students were like that, because you have classes that are like 40 people, 30 students, and there's going to be a large component, probably as much as half, if not more, that do not like English, don't want to have nothing to do with it, and then by proxy they don't like you, or maybe they don't like, but they definitely don't respect you to a degree, or they think they're not going to respect you because you represent the outside, the gaijin, this element, until you prove otherwise. And for me, the easiest way to do it, I would find out who that, because this is one troublemaker that's above all else, and a lot of them are getting strength from him or her. It's usually a him,
right?
And you just kick him out the class. You send him out. And I know you've done it too, and let's talk about some of these experiences.
Okay.
You send them out of the class. Now, when you do that, there's going to be a lot of backflack from the staff, from other people.
Yeah.
But I know, again, we're only talking about pushing buttons. So you're going to push their buttons.
Right.
But now, are you equipped to deal with what's going to come with that?
Yes.
You got an experience you can share about that?
You come in, and I like to go in, and I already know how most English teachers are viewed as in Japan, which is just coons, people who just get used, who are used for more entertainment than they are for teaching.
Right.
They really don't want you, especially you go into a lot of the public private schools, they don't want you teaching. They want the Japanese person teaching. They want you to assist.
Okay, so he's talking about a team teaching situation where there's a Japanese teacher and then a native English speaker at the same time.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Something I don't do.
Right. And right. But they pay right. And really, if you're just doing it part-time, you don't go in there every day. I can deal with it sometimes, but there's limits. And the main limit for me is I'll have fun with the kids, but they're not going to make a spectacle out of me, or you're not going to make a spectacle out of me. So I'll take a back seat. You can teach them all you want, but they will treat me like they treat you. Which is when you're messing with Japanese people, you have to say you have to treat me like you do a Japanese person. That's basically the rule that I have. Not view me as a Japanese person, just treat me the same as you do everybody else.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, but you're talking about as the same as a Japanese person or a Japanese teacher?
A Japanese person, and depending on the situation. So I'm a teacher in this situation, as a Japanese teacher.
Okay.
But there's a leeway, So, for example, sometimes the kids want to ask a question, and they'll ask the Japanese teacher over me. They're like, I don't want to ask you, I want to ask her. I'm like, hey, you can do whatever you want, So if you want to talk to her, go over there. I'll just sit in the back, take out my cell phone, read a book, whatever, And that's when the teacher will come in and say, well, you ask him, he knows. But I allow the teacher, truthfully, to be the authority in the room if that's what they want to do. But I will not be disrespected. And when it comes to being disrespected, it's a thin line. And the easiest way to check children is what you just said, oust them. In Japan, you just oust them. So I'll just send them out the room or whatever. And when let's just say one time this girl wasn't listening to me, she just kept talking over me. And the main teacher was gone. The main teacher had something to do, and they were just basically ignoring me. So I sent the girl outside. Now the way the room is designed is a glass window, so the whole wall is glass, so you can see her outside. She's out there twirling around, acting funny, acting goofy, and everybody is like, "Oh, you're the rebel," whatever. It's cool. They're children. It's what children do.
How old are these kids?
They're first year middle school, so they're like
12,
13.
Okay.
Yeah, about 13, something like that. So they're just acting like kids, But once I put the one girl outside, which you don't do in Japan, by the way, you don't send any children outside.
Yeah, there's not like in the West where that's kind of a common punishment. The Japanese teachers, to my knowledge, I've never seen it happen. I've worked 10 years in different schools on a consistent full-time basis, and I've never really seen this occur.
Right. So I send them outside. Eventually the teacher comes back. I say, you can come back inside. And then they all run to her or him and start explaining in Japanese as if I don't understand Japanese what happened in their way. You know, like,
okay, wait. Time out. I think it's kind of confusing. So at this time, when you're sending the child out, is there a Japanese teacher in the room too?
No.
Okay, so he's not talking about a team teaching event.
I am talking about team teaching, but the teacher has been out. The teacher is busy. The teacher went out to do something and left me there. The teacher left me in there for an extended period of time. Like, let's just say the class is about an hour and some change, and they left me in there for like the full hour.
Okay, so it's kind of in a situation when the cat's away, the mice start to play.
Right.
Oh, the Japanese teacher's not here. We don't got to take this too seriously.
Right.
You know, like you said, they're kids.
Right. And then they'll come back and then they'll just start talking to the Japanese teacher, as you know, in Japanese of, here's what I did and he didn't get it. They're trying to make it as in, I don't understand how rude they were. Like, he took it wrong because he doesn't understand Japanese or whatever they want to say. Mm-hmm. Then I say in Japanese, you're acting very disrespectful. Do you talk to her like that? You said this to me, and I can say exactly what she said to me. Or you ignored me when I asked you to do this. I said this to you, and you ignored me. Do you ignore this teacher? Do you ignore Hayato Sensei when they ask you to do the same thing? And they get stuck. They didn't know that this kind of situation was going to happen.
Right. And
then I say to the teacher right in front of her, I say, if this happens again, I'll send you outside again. Do you have a problem with that? And the teacher's like, nah, that's how he does it. And then they start to see, okay, so this is a situation where he has authority.
So this is like, again, this is a situation kind of like the child trying to split the parents, right? And once they see the parents are together and then there's no wedge to be created, then they sit there monkey behind down.
Right. Now, in the case that the teacher does disagree, which can very well happen, usually could happen, I would say, for other people. I have my own company right now. I do this as just some extra cash. If it does get to the point where they're like, you know, they're going to do anything where they take the child's side or don't want to listen to me, I'll leave. You know what I'm saying?
And so it's important to have the line. You have to have a line. You have to be willing to lose this, really.
You have to be willing to lose. Yes.
Whenever we're talking about integrity, when integrity, you have to be the person that's going to go all the way, and they have to see that. If they don't see that in you, you're going to lose.
Right.
Okay.
That's
I got a situation. I had a situation. The same thing occurred. I used to work at a Buddhist high school, a private school in Kyoto. It was pretty famous. And I was the first non-full Japanese person to work at the school because they were an all boys school, and again, very traditional. And then they decided to modernize, you know, the 21st century. They came in, and I'll never forget this. So I wasn't team teaching. They decided that I was independent enough. That's another story. So I'm teaching a class, 30-some students. I got this one student, let's just call him Kentaro. I always use Kentaro, the name Kentaro for some reason. This boy just wouldn't listen. He's like in the class, like,
whatever.
Yeah, and I the first couple of days I called him, he would kind of answer, but he clearly had a bad attitude, and I was okay, I'm gonna have to do something about this. But you got to give their children, give them enough rope to hang themselves. So I let this go for about a week because he would answer. And then it got to the point where he didn't answer. I would just call him and he would ignore me. So I called him, he ignored me. I'll let you do it one time. And the reason I do it is because this is for everyone else to see. Because when it comes back out, I have to be, I let him do it one time.
Right.
But I have a system where I use cards, so it's kind of random, but I doctored the thing and made sure I called back on him.
Cards that have their names on them?
Yeah. And I kind of flipped through the cards. But I doctored it, made sure I called on him like 10 minutes later. Just let me see what he's gonna do. He does the same thing. Like, and he's actually like exhaling, like get out my face,
Really?
He mumbling under his breath, and the kids around him are laughing a little bit. And I was a very strict teacher, so a lot of those students didn't like me. I learned a lot afterward. I learned to kind of give them more leeway. But at this time, I was very, very stand up, state your answer. If they didn't answer the question, I'd make them stay standing sometimes. So there was a little rebellion going on in the class. So and that just ain't gonna happen. That's just, clearly just a violation of, and I'm not talking about me right now. I'm talking about the respect for the classroom. And I talk to students about respecting the classroom, not me, respecting your fellow classmates. I'm included, but it's not about you just got to listen to me. You know what I'm saying? But there's a certain way the class has to function. And one of them is I'm the teacher. I mean, anybody else want to get up here and teach?
Right.
I find when you come at people like that, especially students, they tend to see you differently. Oh, he's not just coming off like I'm the tough guy and you got to listen.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. But in this case, I had to be the tough guy. So I was like, yo, Kentaro, listen. And I said it very, very calmly. Listen, this is a classroom. Everyone else is answering. If you don't know, all you got to do is say you don't know and I'll go by. But you can't just not acknowledge me. And I'm saying this in Japanese. He actually, I don't know if he really hears me or doesn't hear me. I said, listen, I'm going to call on you again. If you don't answer me, you're going to have to leave the room. Go ask some other students some stuff. Leave them alone. I want to give them a chance to brood, to be. Right. I was a rebel when I was in school.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't want you. This is not a pissing contest. This is not a thing of me. I'm gonna show you. And I'm trying to make that clear, not to him necessarily, because he's already seen me that way, but to the rest of the class. I have to work here. And you can get a rebellion can take place. Don't ever think that you so big or so bad that it can't happen, because it happens to Japanese teachers.
It will last.
Yeah, and they'll last. They'll hold a grudge, and this whole
8
thing.
months.
You can't have the whole group against you, and you're gonna have to come here every day. You can think you're bad if you want. You know what I'm saying? Right. So anyway, so I come back to him again. Same thing. So I said, listen, I've already told you this. Okay, listen, this is what I'm gonna do. You have to leave the class. And he was, ain't leaving no class. Okay. I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna erase this board. When I turn back around, if you're not out the class, I'm gonna put my hands on you and physically throw you out of the class. Now, I'm saying it the same way I'm saying it to you. So I'm not like, yo, No, I'm saying it very calmly, very slowly. And I know, and I told this story to a junior high school student that I teach privately now. This situation happened 10 years ago, but I told a junior high school student this recently. And I said, so when I turn around to erase the board, what do you think happened? And he was like, he starts talking to the other students. Yeah, that's why I did it. Because some of those students I played basketball with, I had knocked them down. They know I ain't no joke. And they're like, I want to give them to give you a chance to know, yo, he's gonna do it. He's going. If he said he's gonna do it, Amaru Sensei is gonna do it. So I turned around, raced the board, took my time, gave him a good minute and a half to talk, to whisper. I can hear them whispering. When I turned back around, he's still there. Okay. I started walking from behind the desk. When I start walking from behind the desk, he stands up, but he's still looking at me. And I'm like, yo, listen, if I put my hands on you, no matter what you say, I'm going to throw you out the class. Not because, you touch him. Okay. Now, okay.
Yeah.
I've already had to come over here. It's over for you. You're going to get thrown out the class. And I said, so I started walking from behind the podium. Okay. And then he started walking out the class. So I walked toward the door. He walks out. So I get out, I get to the class. I open the door. I say, I give the students an assignment and I finish whatever we was doing. And I walk out the class. Listen, you're not allowed to come back in here today. Go. We're going to talk to your homeroom teacher, and maybe you can come tomorrow. And he's mad talking. He tries to tell me off. Okay, would I just go back into class? He comes back 5 minutes later with his homeroom teacher, and I didn't know his homeroom teacher was a very young teacher. It was her first year. She was green behind the ears. So he did what you said your student did. He went there, told her his side of the story, how I was the bad guy. And all she's hearing is she knows, oh, throwing him out the class, that is severe in Japan because you're separating him from his group. Japanese exist in a group. Japanese can't exist without their group.
Right.
It's like a fish out of water. They would literally die. That's where suicide comes in, the high suicide rate. Once the group ostracizes you, it's only a matter of time before you'll see them self-destruct.
Right.
Hikikomori, the what do you call them? People that stay in the house. They're scared. Hikikomori, they won't, they're recluses,
hermits. Yep.
Hermits, that's what I'm looking for. These and there's a big problem with that in Japan. Written article about that too. I've mentioned them in articles. Anyway, she comes back, and I was like, it wasn't enough time, because she comes back like 5-10 minutes later. So the time it took him to get to the homeroom, to the teacher's room, and mind you, also in Japan, it's not like in the West. The teacher's room is a room where all the teachers are in the room together working. It's like an open office area.
Yeah, very big.
So when so when the students come in, they teach the students there. So in other words, he went in there and voiced it. So all the teachers who were in that room heard it. So now it's a school situation.
School matter,
It's become a school issue. So she comes back and I go out through, students do this 1 to 10. I'll be right back. And I go out there with an attitude, which she didn't expect. And I walk out there and I say to her in Japanese, listen, this better be good because you're disturbing my class. What? And she's like, oh my God. Like she thought she was going to scold me.
Talk right there, y'all, just so you know.
She thought she was going to be in the driver's seat. She thought she was going to tell me what to do. Yeah. And then she starts stumbling over her words. And I said, listen, did he tell you what he did? And she clearly don't know nothing. And I looked at him, I said, you're a liar now because whatever you told her, you're lying about because you have done far more than enough to be punished or to be disciplined. I said, I'm going to say this one more time. He cannot come back in this classroom today. Now, when he comes back in, it's totally up to him. But now I told him to speak to you about it, but I can see speaking to you is just speaking to another child. So now it's you and the assistant, vice principal. Now she gets scared at that because it's just like talking to a student. She's scared now too. But they're like looking at me like, you can't do this. Watch me. I'm going to go back in this classroom. I don't want to see either one of you anymore today. We'll talk about this tomorrow with the vice
not
principal.
Even today, not even later.
Yeah, not later today.
Period.
Because I want to make this clear that they are you're disturbing the classroom now. This goes back to what I talked about, respecting the class. We don't have time to do this. These students, their parents pay good money for these kids to come here to get an education. And it doesn't include me going out and having a conference during this 40-minute period. You could have came to me after this class and done this. But you're looking at, you're scared for yourself. This is ego. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, long story short, next day, they have a proper meeting. The Kyoto sensei calls me. We go into his office. He sides with me. After everything's explained, the boy comes back into class. Next time I call on him, he just says, I don't know, with an attitude. But he says, I don't know. That's all I wanted. You can have an attitude. I can't. You have to have a good attitude. No, but you're going to speak like you have some sense and you're going to do it respectfully.
Right.
Just because you sound, I don't know. Okay. And I said, okay, and I move on. Every time I call him, he says, I don't know. Okay. That's all I'm saying. Now, fast forward. I think he was in his second year. The next year, he's not one of my, they switch it. I don't have him because no, they don't switch. I'm sorry. I was, he was Ichinensei. I was an Ichinensei or first year, junior high school first year teacher. So he moves up to second year, so he's not my student anymore. I still see him, but we have no reason to speak to each other. We never spoke to each other. He becomes third year. When he's graduating junior high school was the same year I quit the school. I moved to a different part of Japan. They have a ceremony for me. I don't know they're having a ceremony for me. A goodbye ceremony where they call all of the junior high school students together. So it's a lot of students. And I didn't know this was going to happen. They just told me to come to this room. So I walk in the room and all the students are there, all the teachers are there. And I'm like, kind of like, what's going on? And they have a bouquet of flowers. In Japan, that's how they do for you. If they respect you and you do a good job, when you leave, it's a big deal. And they always give you a big bouquet of flowers. They present it to you in front of people. For those of you, if you've been in Japan for a couple of years and this never happened to you, then that shows what they think of you. Excuse me. Okay, so in this meeting, the head teacher, he gives me, and he says, you did a good, blah, 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 whatever. But he says, we have one representative for all that's going to speak for all of the Chugakse, all of the junior high school students. So I'm thinking, there's certain students that I really got along with well, that used to come from me. I'm thinking it's going to be one of them. Nah, it's Kentaro-kun.
Wow. And you ain't seen him in how long?
I see him once in a while, but I was an Ichinensei teacher. Now he's graduating 2 years later. So it's 2 years later. We see each other in school.
Big jump for kids. Yeah, that's like an eternity.
Yeah, from 12 or 13 to 15.
Yeah, definitely.
And now he's looking more like a man guy, little facial hair, little fuzz going on. And I'm like, oh no. He stands up and he's still looking like he got that attitude. And I'm like, what's he gonna say? He gonna curse me out in front of all these people?
Stuff. I've been waiting for this moment.
Yeah. But on the contrary, he says, when I was a first year student, I had you and you kicked me out of the class. And I was like, oh boy. And he said, there's no words to describe how much I hated you. I hated you. I really did. I hated you. And he said, he said, but now I'm a little older. And he said, I understand that I was wrong and you were right. And from what he said, it sounded like it took him those couple years. Probably he's seeing me around the school. He's seeing my get down and he's seeing I'm not just, because there would have been other students like, he think he the man. He think he, but I speak from a place of a paternal position. I speak to them not like their father, but like a father. That's how I speak, especially if I'm talking to someone who's younger than me. And when I say young, I'm talking about maturity. I'm talking about now, because Sterlyn's younger than me, but I don't speak to him like that way. I speak to him like a man. I don't speak to him like I'm some, let me school you, young buck. Yeah, I don't. That's not what happens.
Yeah.
But this boy, he said you were right and I was wrong, and he apologized right there, because when he apologized, he kind of said it, and he said I was wrong, man, and he said thank you for teaching me correctly.
Well, I was gonna say, did he thank you? Yeah.
He thanked me, and he said, and then he said on behalf of all the students, man, and all I was up there.
He said all this.
He said all of that in Japanese.
Right on, man.
And
I ain't been in a school this long. It's just crazy how you flipped it, but yeah.
All I was trying. I was like, I did not want to start tearing up because the tears were mad heavy, and I was like, and I had to, get that. And it was maybe one of the most, not maybe, it was 1, 2, 3 most touching moments I've had in Japan. They really like I said, Japanese, because they're a little bit challenged when it comes to expressing themselves.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, challenged. That's a
but this was one time like they really let me know, and it was permeating through the whole room. I was like, I gotta get out of here, man. I'm gonna start crying like a little, like whatever, you know what I'm saying? But but like I said, but this lets me know. Because you have doubts whenever you take a stance like this. You're standing on a very slippery slope, and it's a very you're by yourself. And
but again, back to the point is that your buttons weren't pushed,
right?
You know what I'm saying? Your buttons weren't pushed. You constructively came at this. Like it's not his fault. He young. He think you a punk ass gaijin just like any other gaijin who come up in there.
Right.
Like this, I go in places knowing that. That's why I don't even like working at English school. I know they be punking you. And until I really talked to you, or we really dealt with it when we went back and forth back in the day when we was talking about just how much bullshit it is to be teaching out here like that, I was like, yeah, you have to go in and try to flip that shit. You know what I'm saying? Without saving face. You know what I'm saying? Without having to make an ass of yourself or trying to show your emotion. You know what I'm saying? Because
right.
There is a reason they are doing this. It's not like he just thought you specifically was some punk ass. Like he's just like, well, you the foreigner.
Right.
You know, and that was, you know, because I be telling Japanese students all the time, I'm like, you know, English is second to me in priority. You need to get used to people who don't look like you, who don't act like you, and treat them the same way. So if you see me as a friend, or you treat me, not a friend as in you can just call me by my first name, not like that, but you treat me like you treat a Japanese person, then you, whether you learn English or not, you've learned something now. You know what I'm saying?
Well, what it is, you've gotten to the zero stage where now communication becomes possible. If you have to have respect, the respect is the foundation of any kind of relationship, friendship, working, lovers, brother, sister, no matter what. Friendship is you have to have a level of respect. And a lot of Japanese come in and they want to play with you, and then years later they haven't learned anything. Because they don't see you as a human being. They're not. So when you talk, they don't hear what you're saying. You got to repeat things over and over again. And I don't do any of that. I'll say things, yeah, you didn't get it. You didn't get it. And I'll find a way to punish them, you know, where they'll see it. But the main thing, you said it. The main thing is if you're here and you're being gaijin, you're being treated a certain way. Yeah, it's annoying. Of course it is. But you have to find a way to be able to objectify the whole situation and be able to stand apart from yourself and see where they're coming from. And you have to speak to them where they are. If you just start flying off of the handle and if you show emotion, everybody's just going to see. It's like they have a Walkman on, and now you just become emotional. You become amusing. You become like a variety show.
Right on.
And when I talk to a lot of people, foreigners, when they come at me with this, you can hear they got the emotion. We're gonna talk about. There's a brother that gave me a message recently. A couple brothers actually that are over here teaching, and they're having less than a favorable time doing it. So we're gonna talk about this. But this again, we're talking about pushing buttons. So if you're gonna push a Japanese buttons, if you need to do that, you need to understand the Yamato code. What I call the Yamato code. Again, I've written about it. Once you understand that the fabric of the Japanese mindset, now you can go to work. But if you don't know the Japanese mindset, if you're coming in here with a Western mindset or whatever mindset you're coming in that's not Japanese, and be Korean, I don't care what it is, you're gonna fall into pitfalls that are set for you. That are set for you. They're expecting you to do a
they are definitely doing that. They're expecting. That's for sure. They come to you with that expectation. We're gonna have to take a break right here real quick and come back in a second.
What's going on?
Make sure this is recording.
Okay.
So let's just stop it real quick and then start it up again.
Okay, so hold on for 1 second. Be right back. Welcome back.
Yeah.
We are back in his house. Okay, so we are going in on pushing knowing how to push Japanese people's buttons, their emotional buttons. You could say their emotional pain body. Shout out to Umar Johnson.
On that, yeah.
I heard come up with that. I actually wrote that as one of the definitions in gaikokujin. You can find that in the glossary. EPB, emotional pain bodies. And again, something we didn't say, if you decide to do this, because some of the techniques we're talking about like, for example, removing Japanese people from their group. This is years and years of trial and error that Sterlyn and I went through. And those years and years, we gained a certain amount of experience, not just language ability, but the ability of being able to maneuver through the culture. Please understand something. If you elect to do these, this is at your own discretion. Don't come back complaining to us, because it's not like you're just going to get everything you want and it's going to be okay. Understand there are benefits to being treated like a foreigner. And if you want to come up off of that, I'm tired of being treated this way. Okay, but understand all of that translation help you get. Do you have to attend a meeting that's in Japanese? Okay, well, do you need somebody to explain to you what's going on? Well, that's gone. These Japanese people, they might smile and look like it's fun to do, but no. Once you get this new status, you're gonna have to pick it up. Do you have to open a new bank account? Do you need help doing that? Well, you're not going to be able to ask the Japanese people that you've just told, I don't want to be treated like a foreigner. Because when they have to open a bank account, they're not going to somebody. They go in there and march their behinds in there and do it themselves. Can you understand Keigo? Can you correspond using that? Well, if you can't, then you might want to do something before you start trying to implement some of these techniques that we're talking about. So that's at your discretion. You've been warned.
That is exactly correct. This is not something to really play with. They take this very seriously, and you don't just walk in and treat me like a regular person. Treat me like a Japanese person. I don't come in here with this, I want to be treated the same. I'm coming in with, I have the experience. I've been here long enough where I don't need to go through the whole training process again. I came here, I didn't know what I was doing. You helped me, thank you. Now I do know what I'm doing. Leave that for the trainee. Don't treat me like the trainee anymore. And if you're a trainee, you just came in here, you don't know the culture, you don't know the language, you can try it if you want. But especially at a public school or a private school, it would behoove you to know the system, know what you're working with. I go in with one other teacher now. It's like two teachers in there because it's a very rich school, and they call him by his first name, and they call me Mr. Carroll. He didn't know what name. Which is his, which is your last name. Yeah. And they don't know the difference between my first or last. They don't know what sounds like but they definitely know what Mr. means. Mm-hmm. And I said, you can call me. I always do this little joke, but it's real. You can call me Mr. Carroll. You can call me Carroll teacher. Some of the kids around the way, they call me Sterlyn teacher, but either way you call me teacher, or you just call me God. I'm like, you just call me God. And they think it's real funny. They're like, okay, God. And after a while, they just start calling me God, to the point where one little girl came back one day because she really likes me as a teacher. And I guess she tells her mother and father about me at dinner time or whatever. And she brought a note back saying, my daughter doesn't know your actual name. Could you please tell her your real name? She just calls you God. And I was like, that's good enough. You can call me God. Like, what difference does it make to you? All names are the same, right? They're all foreign names. What's the problem with calling me God? I don't mind being called. That's like Dono-sama or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I actually Sterlyn told me that, and I implemented that in a couple of my classes. And I had a student one time. She was like, God sensei, God. And I was like, looking around, I was like, oh, that's me.
You almost forgot?
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of funny. I haven't done it recently, but I do that sometimes too.
Yeah, they started switching the teachers. Once they found that out, they were like, okay, please explain your name. Please write your name on the board every time you come in. And I was like, all right, God. It's either way, man, But eventually they're just like, okay, like the teacher will come in and flip the script and be like, okay, well, you can call me Miss Hayashi. You call him Mr. Carroll, or you can call me Hayashi-san and call him Carroll-san, But whatever you call the teacher that is supposedly the head teacher, that's what you're going to call me by the title.
Okay. I've actually had classes where the teacher, because it's a foreign teacher, English class, they'll tell the students to call them by their first name, or like one guy was like Masafumi. He was like, call me Masa Sensei. But even if they do that, they still have the reverence of a Japanese teacher. Because he was, and I said, well, when he said that, he expected me to say, oh, you can just call me Top. You call me Amaru. Amaru Sensei. You know, I'm not playing with that. It's consistent across the board.
Right.
You know, and they started bringing white teachers in after me. And this is the same school, Heian, in Kyoto. And all of them didn't know. So they were Jeff Sensei and Bill and Susan. And it was funny, there was a little bit of a beef there because I ended up being their supervisor. And just to let you know, I was so strict at a certain point that they just gave me my own section, and it was entitled International Culture and Ethics. And that was because what Sterlyn said, even if I have a class that is a straight up English class, you're here to teach English, that it's always secondary, because I'm a teacher, not an instructor. A teacher sensei in Japanese is the same title that's given to a doctor. So if you think about a doctor, the respect that you and Western people have for doctors, teachers in Japan are having respect along those lines. So they're
case in point, they call doctors sensei.
That's what I said. Yeah, they call
same
thing.
Said that. Okay, my bad. Yeah. So sensei is yeah.
Yeah, the same thing. Sensei, a doctor is sensei, a teacher is sensei. And so you think about the respect that you may have or Western people have for doctors. You're the wise person. You're the one that knows things. So they're holding you to a higher moral code, a higher ethics code. And so when I walk in the room, as I said before, I understand that a classroom has to be based on respect. Now, again, this is not, you got to respect me. I got to respect you. I got to respect the class. I can't just show up here late. I can't show up here looking unprofessional or unprepared. I have a certain obligation that I take very seriously. And once, like I said, they started seeing that, things started to change. So those of you're complaining about certain things in your school, the first thing you need to do is assess yourself. What do you look like every day? Do you come in? Are you on time? Are you coming in hungover? Are you coming, because especially if they're seeing you every day. If you're consistent with your get down and it's a professional one, they're going to respect you. Respect is something that you earn. It's not something that's given.
Again, one of those rules across the board. But yeah. Anyway, what is that? One of the buttons that was pushed. What is a button that Japanese? What Japanese button can be pushed to use as a teaching moment? Because I think we brought this whole idea up as I only really want to push buttons to show you that you're trying to push mine, but as a teaching moment, I'm going to push yours. We're going to see. So the fact that your student flipped the script and said, I was so mad at you, and then he thanked you later, you pushed his buttons, and then all of a sudden he flipped over. You know what I'm saying? He 180'd. And again, I don't come to Japan to just start complaining to Japanese people. I really come here and push buttons really because I'm living here now. I've set up my whole base here. It'd be hard to go to another country and set up another base. Damn sure ain't going back to the States. So I need my lifestyle to be as comfortable as possible. And I can't do that when my immediate circle of the people I have to see on a regular basis are, I consider disrespecting me or getting on my nerves. And Japanese have a very good way of coming off like, oh, I don't know what you mean. Like, what do you mean? 'Cause they're so polite, but it almost comes off as, kind of how like white people are like, I never grew up around black people, so I didn't know, it's only on that. But when it comes with white people, you're kind of on some, like, whether you didn't grow up around them or not, you should know enough. When you come over in Japan, you get thrown off guard because they can say things like that. I didn't know,
And just to add to that, and it's so subtle at certain points. And so a lot of times when you're trying to push the button, you can't, like, you don't want to kill a mosquito with a jackhammer. You know what I'm saying? You need a fly swatter for that. So you want to come at the right level. But if you become so emotional, that, you know, you're gonna, you know, you might be totally correct, but no one's going to see it that way. Another smaller example, and I remember telling you about this, is like the small thing, like I said about you know, this they have certain ways to put you in the foreigner box. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times I'm saying, just don't speak to me. If you feel the need, just don't say anything to me. But because if you try to do that, I'm going to have something for you. It might not be the first time because I'll give you a chance. But trust me, by the third time, if you're stupid enough to go in that same door